Good morning and welcome everybody to the Lakers Lowdown podcast. I'm Anthony Irwin of Lakers Daily. Today on the show, we're going to be talking about the fact that a day has now come and gone with not a peep, nary a peep about Darvin Ham. It's a little weird. We're going to talk about LeBron James's future and his kind of intimations on it. And, whatever else comes up. Let's get to it. So the Lakers were eliminated basically, as I'm recording this, about 24 hours ago. 24 hours have come and gone, and the entire, media industry covering the Dodgers have all basically behaved and acted as if Darvin Ham is going to be fired, myself included, right? We talked about this on the show right after the game, right after Game 5 ended, and basically said, yeah, this is how this is probably going to go. And haven't gotten anything else that would indicate otherwise in the previous 24 hours. That piece, excuse me, that I talked about after the after Game 5, that is still sitting there ready to be published. I wrote that thing back on Thursday before even Game 4, but yeah, we have seen plenty of details come out. I guess we can go into some of the details from some of those pieces in the next segment or two, especially one quote in particular. But it a little weird, a little weird that Darvin Ham. We have not gotten a report that Darvin Ham has been let go, even though everything would indicate to this point that that's where all of this is heading. And so I did some asking around. And everybody that I spoke to still believes that that is where this is probably heading. And, for all of us who were sitting here hoping and wondering, more wondering than hoping, equal measures of either, we're all kind of sitting here like, well, what's the delay? What's going on here? And so I did some asking around, and basically like the where everything kind of lands is everybody that I spoke to still anticipates Darvin Ham is going to be let go. And everybody that I spoke to says that the Lakers are kind of correcting, whether it's overcorrecting or whatever. They are correcting to the criticism that was levied against them after they fired Frank Vogel mere minutes after his final game. So, you have that going on. And this is just me. This is just me speculating. This is just my kind of analysis of the situation. And maybe I'm neurotic here because there is an outcome here that I would prefer. But the longer that this went on over the course of the day, and the longer that this goes on before we hear from anybody on the subject, the more I'm like, so this is gonna happen, right? Like this is like this decision's coming sometime soon, right? We are still waiting on any kind of word on when we're going to hear from Rob Pelinka, and that will probably come right after we get some decision on Darvin Ham, whether it is to fire him or to keep him around. Rob Pelinka is going to have to answer for that decision one way or the other. So you have that coming. He needs to stand up and answer for this last season, right? And the decisions that led to the roster, or a roster that featured LeBron James, Anthony Davis, and, Austin Reeves, and basically no other two-way players. And so we're still waiting to hear from him on that front. And, normally we won't hear from Rob Pelinka until there's an update or a positive update in the news. But it's pretty rare for a Lakers GM or a Lakers president of basketball operations, vice president of basketball operations, to basically just not talk after a season. So like we're waiting on all of it, right? It's just really, really quiet right now. And we know that the Lakers took their exit interviews right after the game. And I kind of wondered afterward if that was an excuse for Rob to not talk and for Darvin to just kind of answer a few questions and then be kind of ushered out the door. We're just kind of sitting here in no man's land. We're all waiting for some kind of an update here. And the rest of the industry has basically treated the last 24 hours as an opportunity to release their postmortems on the Darvin Ham tenure. And I think it's somewhat intelligent. You got to get your stories out there. Like, shoot, I wrote a lot of those same reports basically heading into the weekend. And now it's going to sound like some of that stuff is regurgitated. And so, like, to a certain extent, for those platforms, it's smart to get your stuff out there even before a decision has been made on Darvin Ham. And so like we have basically made the decision at Lakers Daily to just kind of wait one way or the other on a decision on Darvin Ham before we release my article taking you behind the scenes on what this last year was like. But it's just really weird that you would go a whole day here with no update on the situation. And for all we know, I'm recording this at 10:11 Pacific time, just after midnight my time. And by the time this airs, maybe, or by the time you guys listen, maybe there will be a final Woj report, because he's the person, like he's the person that Rob texts. He has direct access to Rob Pelinka in ways that most of us don't when it comes to breaking this kind of information. And so what's probably going to happen is I guess what's probably going to happen if Darvin Ham is actually let go is Woj will tweet it out. Everybody will get the notification, and then I will reach out to the people that I talk to and try to confirm that information. And at that point, everybody will be able to move forward. But it was really like super weird that we got no update on that here today. Like nothing. We got the initial reports that his job is in peril and all that stuff. And it was interesting that The Athletic and ESPN both used the same terminology there. But really weird that you would go basically 24 full hours here, not get any update there. And, we'll see what this looks like in the morning. But, until then, it's not to say that my spidey senses are tingling. I just find this a little weird, right? It's all really weird. And maybe it's just an overcorrection. Maybe it's just like that's all it is that the Lakers are just kind of waiting and biding their time to release that information in a time frame that doesn't piss off as many people as releasing the information did with Frank Vogel. And in which case, taking PR into account makes some sense here. But 24 full hours after the fact, with nothing really changing, right? Nothing has changed over the last 24 hours. So if they release this information, if they leak that Darvin Ham is going to be let go tomorrow versus yesterday with no change in the information, all that they were waiting for was for it to be deemed okay. And like, okay, fine, cool. Like, PR matters, and the way that you handle these things does matter. I thought the way that they handled it with Frank Vogel was offensive, but it's just all like to this point to go 24 full hours with no update just strikes me as weird. On that Darvin Ham front, though, again, as I said, the indications that I have gotten to this point is that he is probably still going to be let go, and they are probably going to open up a coaching search that features all kinds of candidates, but probably focuses on guys or people with more experience. And we'll see what that kind of winds up with. over the course of yesterday, by the time you guys are listening to this, though, we did get a couple, kind of tidbits on Darvin Ham's previous season and how things went there and the fallout from that season. And the place that I really want to start is with a a uh, a report from Dave McMenamin on what this last year was looked like and it has looked like and felt like, and what the future might feel like and all of that stuff. But in particular, Darvin Ham gave a quote to him where I just thought it was like in really poor taste and really kind of, it to me, signified that he's gone anyway. But yeah, I thought it was really weird that Darvin Ham offered up the following quote on what it was like to coach the Lakers, especially this last year, and how the Lakers and he, kind of went through it all. The big quote here coming from Darvin Ham is, it's been extreme. This is from Dave McMenamin of ESPN. It's been extremely challenging, Ham said. Everything that's been in and out, everyone that's been in and out of the lineup being criticized for not having a consistent rotation when I don't have consistent, healthy bodies. The thing that frustrates me, and I love this job, I love the pressure that comes with it. I've always been calm in the midst of chaos, blah, 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 blah. But common sense tends to go out the window when you talk about my job in particular. Um, it's amazing how people just skip that core part of having a consistency with your lineup is all predicated on health and performance. If you're coaching a team and one of your starters is like 10 games in a row just shitting the bed, what are you going to do? End quote. So a lot of people took that quote and took from it that it was pertaining to D'Angelo Russell. And I get why they would do that, and given the way that this postseason went. But D'Angelo Russell didn't play 10 bad postseason games. Nobody played 10 postseason games. So I don't necessarily think that was D'Angelo Russell. I actually took that to mean that he was saying that Austin Reeves was bad for 10 straight games. And that's why he benched Austin Reeves after the beginning of the season, when Reeves was clearly pretty tired coming off of the time that he spent with Team USA in FIBA play. And this is one thing that, and again, there is no clarity here. There's no additional context on that quote from the piece to be able to, detail who he's talking about there. He could have been talking about Taurean Prince, but we know it's not Taurean Prince because it took, 60 games for him to bench Prince, right? It could be about Cam Reddish, but if you're upset that Cam Reddish played like shit for 10 games, well, that's Cam Reddish. And we know that it isn't about LeBron and AD because they didn't play like shit for 10 games straight at any point in the season, let alone for their entire careers. So, the people that this could be about is basically about D'Angelo Russell and Austin Reeves, both of whom were benched. And I don't know, like on one, like my first preliminary reaction to this is like, why? What do you get out of that? Just saying, like just calling out whoever it is, and also being too much of a bit of a coward to actually say this person by name, right? Who played like shit for 10 games, Darvin? And if it is between D'Angelo Russell and Austin Reeves, again, both of whom were benched, maybe try to find a way to put a roster around them or a lineup around them that makes up for some of their deficiencies and highlights some of what they do well on the court. And again, it's just like it, rather than any introspection, any kind of looking at the man in the mirror and trying to fade the ham in the mirror, rather than doing any of that, he immediately again jumps back to, well, it's those fuckers' fault. Like, really? That's what we're doing again? You're about to be fired, Darvin. You think it's just their fault? Fine. You can if you want. Um, but to me, also, like all of these interviews, it's funny. Coaches here will like talk in these spots and leak stuff in these spots, um, in a way that they're trying to kind of protect their future opportunities. If I were the owner of an NBA team or a decision maker on, for one of these teams, and I saw a coach after an entire season of absolute and the utmost um consistent ducking of accountability, and then to kind of wrap it all up with even further ducking of that accountability, I'd be like, all right, cool, he's an assistant coach. Darvin Ham doesn't possess the leadership qualities to be a head coach in the NBA. Doesn't mean he's a bad person. Doesn't mean that he doesn't have leadership qualities. I think that he there are some character traits there that I could see being a likable person as an assistant coach and as kind of the lead communicator on a bench. If that is all that he has to focus on. Hell, like when I coached, coming out of high school, that was my role. When I coached on varsity teams was, all right, you were just out of high school. You understand what we're saying. You understand the gist of what we're saying. Can you help us translate this to young adult, the young adults or the kids who we are trying to coach here? That was what I did. And, I think that's kind of who Darvin Ham is going to wind up having to be for the remainder of his coaching career, because clearly if you aren't at all willing to accept any responsibility or accountability for the way that the season plays out with you at the helm, I'm sorry, man. Like you aren't mature enough to coach an NBA team. You're just not. And to basically wrap it all up with, again, this is the this is again a direct quote. It was so inflammatory that I had to double check to make sure that it's an actual quote. Again, quote, it's been extremely challenging. Everyone that's been in and out of the lineup being criticized for not having a consistent rotation when I don't have consistent, healthy bodies. The thing that frustrates me, and I love this job, I love the pressure that comes with it. I've always been calm in the midst of chaos, but common sense tends to go out the window when you talk about my job in particular. It's amazing how people just skip that core part of having a consistency with your lineup is all predicated on health and performance. If you're coaching a team and one of your starters is like 10 games in a row just shitting the bed, what are you going to do? You could point to Jared Vanderbilt's injuries this year. You could point to Gabe Vincent's injuries this year. And frankly, I think those are fair things to point to when you talk about like the defensive struggles that the Lakers dealt with all season, right? Those were going to be two key parts of what would make the Lakers an okay even defensive team. And those guys were not there for the vast majority of the year. And it is altogether fair to point to those guys' absences as like, yeah, it would have really, really helped, right? But at this stage of the offseason, coming right off of the season, to immediately harp on health and inconsistency and inconsistent performance, right, from the players who were healthy, when you had LeBron James and Anthony Davis healthy together for more time than they have spent healthy together under any other coach in any other season together for the Lakers, just comes off as whining, man. It just comes off as immature. And maybe hopefully Darvin grows from this, gets another opportunity, and is a better coach as a result of all of this. But if this is any indication on, who Darvin is as a head coach, as a leader of men for the Los Angeles Lakers next year, he cannot be your head coach. He flat out cannot. And again, like I said at the beginning of the show, like I said, coming off of the end of the season in the previous show to this one, indications are he's not going to be. But that quote right there that response to the season that was, it just hammers home. It's the final nail in the coffin of Darvin Ham's tenure as the head coach of the Los Angeles Lakers. All right, moving on. Let's talk about LeBron James's future and what that might look like. So after the game, he talks about his future and was asked with the final question of the season. Remember, because this was his exit interview after the game. He's asked if he had just played his final game for the Los Angeles Lakers. And his response to it was certainly eye-opening.
Tonight, was there any thought at all that, this could have been your last game with the Lakers?
I'm not going to answer that. Appreciate it.
That was the voice that was asking that question. If you guys recognize it, is actually a friend of the show, Dan Wojcicki of the LA Times, was asking that question. Sounded like, I'm pretty sure. Now we certainly hope so. But so Dan asked that question, and the question is, and this is kind of semantical, this is kind of lawyery here, but Dan's question is, was there any thought that tonight might have been your last game as a Laker? Right? I'll replay the question.
Tonight, was there any thought at all that, this could have been your last game with the Lakers?
So LeBron chooses not to answer that, right? Which means that, just based off of the definition of the question and the definition of the answer, Dan Wojcicki asks, was there any thought as to whether or not that was your last game as a Laker? Rather than for LeBron to say there was an entire playoff game going on, why would I be thinking about that? He says, I'm going to choose not to answer that. And that's interesting, right? Like, it'd be one thing if it was that your last game as a Los Angeles Laker? And LeBron says, I don't know. Shit, the game just ended 15 minutes ago. Why would I know that? That'd have been an altogether super honest and fair answer. But instead it was, LeBron, was there any thought over the course of the night, or was there any thought tonight that was your last game as a Laker? And he says, I'm choosing not to answer that. And, that would mean that at some point in that game, LeBron wondered, I wonder if this is my last game as a Los Angeles Laker. Now, full disclosure, the people that I've spoken to from the Lakers are all very confident that LeBron James is going to be back next year. Full disclosure, Woj went on NBA Today, I think is the show that they do. And he said that all indications right now are pointing towards LeBron James opting out and re-signing a longer-term deal here with the Lakers for the final couple years of his career. Throughout the season, all indications have been that LeBron James intends to retire with the Lakers and probably will retire a Los Angeles Laker. But that struck me as really interesting, right? And the way that I kind of took it is, I think he still wants to retire a Los Angeles Laker, and that is still his intent to do so. But for the first time, really, in his Lakers career, he is going to hold the Lakers' feet to the fire with the things that he wants to happen in this upcoming offseason. He wants more help on this roster. He wants a better head coach. There was a report initially that the Lakers were going to try to draft Bronny James. Apparently, Rich Paul spoke to Adrian Wojnarowski and said that doesn't matter much to LeBron. That the James camp is much more interested in organizations that are going to properly develop Bronny James. Given what we just saw from the Lakers this last year, They didn't develop Jalen Hood-Schifino. They didn't develop Colin Castleton. They didn't even develop Max Christie, who they have to now pay in this upcoming offseason. If I were LeBron and my son was going to an organization, I'd keep him the hell away from the Lakers. Why would I want him on the Los Angeles Lakers other than to play with, to be on my same team, which would be cool. But if the focus here is on Bronny's future, well, for one, I wouldn't even let him go into the NBA this upcoming year. But for two, it for damn sure wouldn't be for the Lakers. We don't even know who their coach is going to be. Why would I want but why right now, why would I want LeBron? Why would I want Bronny to be in a Lakers organization that doesn't even know who their head coach is going to be next year? Maybe it's Darvin. If it's Darvin, why would I want Bronny playing for Darvin? He's not an NBA head coach. If it isn't Darvin and we don't know who it is, why would I want Bronny playing in that kind of a situation? So, yeah, I think, and all indications to this point is that LeBron is going to be a Laker again next year and will eventually retire a Los Angeles Laker. But, and by the way, I hope he holds their feet to the fire. This has not been a serious organization, right? And you still see it. One thing that I find super interesting is the LA Times editorial chapter, right? And the angles that they take on editorializing about the Los Angeles Lakers. Dan does an incredible job just covering the Lakers and providing readers with the facts of how a season goes with the Lakers, right? He does a very, very good job of what his job is, being a beat reporter. He carries out that job incredibly, incredibly well. What I find really interesting from the LA Times, a publication that is owned by a part owner of the Los Angeles Lakers, and a publication that we know Jeannie Buss is very friendly with and offers access to very regularly, find their editorializing about the Lakers super interesting. And when Dylan Hernandez, a Dodgers guy anyway, but Dylan Hernandez goes out there and writes that the Lakers have to acquiesce to LeBron James' demands all over again in the same way that they did with Russell Westbrook or trading for Russell Westbrook. For one thing, it's intellectually dishonest because he knows better. It's not that if I have access to the information that indicates that LeBron did not force Rob Pelinka to trade for Russell Westbrook, Dylan Hernandez of the effing LA Times, with Dan Wojcicki sitting right there, with Brad Turner sitting right there, you know that he knows better, and yet still portrays it in that way where it's big bad LeBron James and big bad clutch forcing poor widow Rob Pelinka to make a trade for Russell Westbrook that did not work out, right? And he's doing that years after the fact. In the years since then, we know how that played out. I know. If you want to aggregate this, go for it. Sources: Rob Pelinka also wanted Russell Westbrook. I know that, on concrete information. I can't give up my sourcing, but just know, per sources, Rob Pelinka also wanted Russell Westbrook. And even if you don't believe me there, look at the players that he has gone out and acquired since then. It's been a freaking bevy of combo guards ever since. It's been a bevy of buckets, a bevy of bucket getters, most of whom couldn't actually get buckets. But still, that's what the focus has been, right? And even coming off of that, they drafted Jalen Hood-Schifino, another combo guard, in this upcoming offseason. Who are their focus? Who are they most closely tied to right now? Donovan Mitchell, Trae Young. Weird, right? Also, even if you don't even want to look at his personnel tendencies, Rob Pelinka only has this job because of his ties back to Kobe. You know who Kobe used to say was his the closest thing to him in terms of mentality? Russell Westbrook. So the idea that somehow Rob Pelinka was forced into trading for this guy is farcical. and just blatantly untrue. And for the LA Times, or a columnist for the LA Times, to go out there and run with that still now, years after the fact, when the majority of informed readers know that that isn't the case. Little weird, right? Little weird. And so, like, for LeBron, I hope he holds this whole organization to the fire. I hope he holds Rob Pelinka accountable for not just the Russell Westbrook thing that obviously LeBron played a role in, but everything that happened. It's not like LeBron told Rob Pelinka, hey man, let Alex Caruso walk. That guy wasn't valuable to our championship run. It's not like LeBron went to Rob Pelinka and was like, hey man, don't employ a decent backup center this year behind Anthony Davis. That makes no sense. Hey, go out, draft a point guard after your main two players. You have your backcourt filled with D'Angelo Russell and Austin Reeves, and you're going to go out and sign Gabe Vincent as your biggest offseason free agent acquisition. But also go ahead and draft a point guard too. Why not? What's the worst thing that could happen there other than that guy never having a decent route to playing time and him not even being considered an asset at this point heading into his second season? What could possibly go wrong there? Like this idea that like Rob Pelinka is just like, the victim to every whim of LeBron James. LeBron would have preferred that they hire Ty Lue. Did they hire Ty Lue? LeBron wanted Phil Handy. They hire Phil Handy? You think they're gonna hire Phil Handy this time around? You think they're gonna hire Ty Lue this time around, given how expensive he's probably going to be? Like, Rob Pelinka won the turf war. He won the PR battle against LeBron James. And ever since he won that PR battle, the decisions that have been made, especially the highest level decisions that have been made, that's been Rob, man. And he's not been good at the job. So if you're LeBron and you have maybe two more, productive years left in your career, and your top goal is to catch Michael Jordan, you either have to leave the Lakers altogether, or you have to make sure that they do everything in their power to give you the best chance that you have at catching Michael Jordan. And that's how he's going to do it. That's how I hope he does it. That's what every Lakers fan should hope that he does, frankly, because Rob Pelinka with a blank check has been a disaster. They went from the Western Conference Finals last year to a first-round exit this year, in part because of the head coach that Rob Pelinka hired. Hold his feet to the fire, LeBron. I'm rooting for you. All right, that is going to do it here for this episode of the Lakers Lowdown podcast. This is a slightly shorter one, right? First official day of the offseason. If and when Darvin Ham gets let go, I will hop on the air immediately for an immediate reaction, a live reaction pod. And I am told right now that I'll have a guest for that episode. For those of you who are interested in my writing, as soon as that news drops, that article will also drop for Lakers Daily. So you have that to look forward to as well. So until then, and until the next time you guys hear from us, I'm Anthony Irwin saying have a great rest of your day. Make somebody else's. Please subscribe to the show. Please like this video here on YouTube. Please find whatever other videos that you want to find or whatever. And subscribe wherever it is that you get your podcast. Tell your friends all those good things. Have a great rest of your day. Make somebody else's, and I will talk to you tomorrow.